struggling, sexless, or toxic in your relationship. And if you know my story, I abused my wife emotionally, physically, and sexually, and almost went to jail for it. And now we're on top of the world. We're in 105 countries. We share what we have learned to overcome abuse, toxicity, sexless, everything. So that's what we're doing here today. We started going live. I got my business partner right here. He can't join. He doesn't have enough followers, but he can go on my other live stream and he can work with me. We're going to talk today with James. James and I want to talk about balance. Okay. Last week we did an episode, like a 2-hour live. We talked about how people struggle so much with the reasons that they're failing, and they don't realize that almost always you just have to get after it. It's your life. And so we just went through like this big list. Today I want to do something different. Rather than give you a big list, I want to make sure that you have a practical step. Today I want to talk about balance with you, James. Like the amount of people that reached out on DMs in our app. Go.moremarriage.com. If you're struggling with your marriage, it's a good place to start. But the amount of people that reached out going, well, how the fuck do I balance all this? Like if I want to be rich, if I want to have this incredible marriage and passionate love life, if I got to be a great parent, if I've got my work, now you're telling me I got to do all of these things. How do I balance? And we're like, whoa, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, right?
That's it. Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, what does it even mean? I mean, when I think about balance, brother, it's like the scales have got to be equal. You got to have the same amount of weight in this hand as you do in this hand. And so when you talk about that with life, I mean, a lot of times it means that, I've got to spend 5 minutes with this kid and 5 minutes with my wife and 5 minutes at work. And I mean, it's just, that's what we think it is. We know that's not the answer, but that's what we think it is. And it's just not conducive to reality. And why? I mean, why do we even need balance?
Well, the fucking problem is, guys, if you have a struggling marriage, if you're struggling to try to make more money every week, if you just don't know how to get into the gym, like if you don't understand this, the problem is you're trying to accomplish everything and you don't know how to move everything around. And the amount of time that people talk about calendars. I mean, I have $1,000 Apple Watch just to put reminders in that I use all day long. But in order to achieve my life, it's not about the reminders that I set. It's about the attention that we put for what we need. That's right. Yeah. That's what you're getting at right now, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think, because I mean, we could sit here and talk for how long are we going to do? 3 hours a day or just an hour?
I don't know. Maybe 10 minutes. We'll see.
All right. Well, when it comes to balance, what I've learned is it's more about where you put your energy. And energy is not something it's not static. I mean, it's not like here's my energy and I got 5% here and 5% there. It's really about intention. And so when I say the word intention, I'm talking about the energy and the focus that I put intentionally. And so for me, balance is not about equity. It's not about having the same amount of time or the same amount of energy or intention. It's about meeting the needs where I'm actually responding to the needs that are around me because of who I am. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday. Being authentic usually takes away that idea that we even need to be balanced. But it's hard. It's hard to really focus on, what it means if we don't even know how to, I don't know, what am I trying to say here? We don't even know how to really understand what balance is and why we feel the need for it. And for me, I just pressure. We feel pressure.
These examples. Take the pressure off by thinking about it quite simply, right? So if you have kids, you used the example earlier, every kid needs the same amount of time. That's absolutely not true.
No, it's not.
It's the quality time you spend. We talk often about, let's say, I'm on my phone a lot with business. I got my headset. I'm on. I forget it's on half the time. And my kids, they're pulling at me because I work from home. And then, and I can't always get to them. And in authenticity, not being authentic of who I am. Well, I was dealing with crisis till 2 a.m. last night or some fucking shit. Right, what I mean? And today I'm more tired and I need to be there for my children, but I have my regular stuff to do and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, if I understand that, then when my kids are talking about their fort, all I have to do is spend time going in the fort with them. Right? It's not about the times that I didn't get to talk about the fort or whatever they were talking about. It's the quality time I give them, the presence that I give them in that moment. Right? And so one kid might need the fort. I know Riddick likes this sword. He's sword fighting dragons is his thing right now. Okay. Like the girls want to show me their pretty new haircuts and makeup and their cheer dances. All I have to do is give the attention that fills their cup. But now I can take the rest of my time and do what I need to do with my time. And I think people trying to balance everything get in such a fog, James.
Yeah.
You know, especially people come to us for their marriage issues, right? And they are struggling in so much pain. They're like, what do I do? What do I do? And the first thing they do is their attention goes the wrong places. Negative social media, Reddit posts, you know, you're spiraling out of control, researching attachment theories. Your attention's already in the wrong place.
Right.
So you can't possibly balance learning.
Yeah, you feel like, well, I can't do it all. And then everything starts to go bad and everything starts. And see, for me, I think a lot of relationship issues, I know almost all relationship issues are because we're not aligned personally with who we are and what we want in life. And so we're always fighting this idea that we can't do enough and we can't do it all. So we get irritated when the slightest thing comes into that mix. So we've got this floodgate of just like a dam bursting. That's our life. We wake up like that every morning. And then all of a sudden somebody comes along with a little piece of tissue paper, said, hey, can you look at this for me? I'm like, this is about to get flooded out. So it's an overwhelming thing. And then we react, and then we get bitter, and then we get frustrated, and then we feel guilty because we feel like we have to do it all the way everything is intended to be done. And we're not even looking at it in the right side. So living intentionally, where every choice reflects what matters most, is really more what balance is about, not equity, not having the scales even.
Yeah, I love. Did you guys catch what he just said? He said living intentionally, right? So if you understand that, I can't be everywhere for everyone in every minute of the day, then I need to know what is my priority, and then I need to know how much presence I'm going to include in that thing that I'm doing, right? So I teach this to guys all the time in my course, the dating thing, right? Like if it's quality time, see, if you're watching television with your partner, see, my wife and I have quality time watching reality shows. We love trashing the relationships, breaking them down, wishing we were giving them advice right now. Fuck, we should be on Netflix, okay? But like the thing is, we pause the show, we talk, we laugh, we reminisce, we talk about the future. We do kind of like work through that, actually. Like we're coaching these people on Netflix, you know what I mean? Or whatever. That's quality time. See, most of you guys are just sitting on the couch, present, but not present. You have quality time with the television and not your spouse. So if you understand that, you start to really use your time for what it is. How many of you, James, you don't probably have your phone when you're with your child or your wife, you don't have your phone on you. I'm assuming you're away.
You don't, correct? You put it away. And then you get back to it, and there's a bunch of texts and messages from people going, where are you? Why aren't you responding? I'm like, dude, that's me. I'm not gonna be hooked to something like that. That's not what we talked about yesterday is finding those core values. And when you live aligned, you can live with intention. And you just mentioned it, priorities and presence. And then I said something about being flexible and then accountable. So those are really the steps we want to go through today is, there've got to be some actions. Your core values, your core identity will decide whether or not you're going to be distracted or not.
That's right. So let's do that. Let's start at the beginning and let's work our way through it. But today I want to do it differently because we did a training yesterday. Today I want to be more interactive with it. Let's give some practical real life examples more as we go through. Fair?
Sounds good. Absolutely. All right. So core values. I mean, what does that even mean? You teach them. I teach them. Catherine teaches them. Some of our mentors teach them. And everybody has a different way of getting, of getting to the same thing. But I look at them as knowing who I am and living according to that knowledge. So authenticity brings me the best autonomy. So if I'm free, I don't have to be balanced. So I literally do not have to worry about being balanced in my life because when I live by these values, that is my balance. So everything's in order. So let's talk about that.
You make your decisions based off of who you are, right? I'll give you a really good example that I'm thinking of right now is when I was making mad money and struggling in marriage and Catherine wanted more time. What would I do? Right. Well, but I'm working. This is for the family. But how much was I actually with the family? Didn't matter. They made $1 million. If my wife doesn't see me spend time, be present with her, then I'm not really doing that. That's not aligning with any core values. Right. Making money should not be a core value. That's a benefit of who you are. And that's what makes core values. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. And you think about that intention right there. So for me, the example that I give out of my life is that I was driven by guilt And because guilt, people say, well, you weren't there for me. I need you here. So I was always running around trying to be everything for everybody, the helper, the fixer, the guy that always showed up. But you can't do that. And so I'd feel guilty and I'd run over here. And while I'm over here with this situation, somebody else would need me and I'd feel guilty. Well, I got to go help them too. And then I would leave this one undone. And all the while, nobody's getting the attention they need. So my balance, the understanding of balance emerged from intention. It required honesty about who I want to be and what's really inside of me, not what I wanted to aspire to. So one of my mantras is act out of will, by will, not guilt. So that's a practical way of that. I make prioritization and live intentionally. If I feel guilty, I don't act. I pause and ask why. If it's something I've done, I can rectify it, but it still doesn't mean I'm going to jump in the fire and catch something on fire on my way out of there.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting about this is he's talking all about how he feels and what he's thinking, right? And most of you guys that are coming to us again, you're struggling with marriage problems, right? So if you're joining us today, we're talking about how we can balance to get through that. So we're starting with core values. My wife and I don't really even talk about our own core values. She teaches it in her program. I teach it in mine. We've never really discussed it. We know what we're doing with our family, but our individual core values are what guide how we feel about the decisions we make. Absolutely. So you can't balance anything in life if you're basing everything off of your partner, off of the expectations. You know, for years for me, like I did things a certain way because my dad told me I wouldn't make money. Oh, you're going to be a fucking bum is what he told me, right? Yeah. I wasn't making decisions off of core values. I was making decisions based off of what he made me feel like and what I had to prove. So I didn't get anywhere until I knew who I was and what I wanted to do. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think it's a hard lesson for us to learn when it comes to balance. I'll say it again. We said it at the beginning, everything in life cannot carry the same weight and it cannot carry the same importance. And what is not important today may be important tomorrow, and what is important tomorrow may not be important the next day. And so everything can't demand the same attention. And it's about walking in wisdom and making sure that, you know, everything that you do is not being driven by someone or something else, but it's been driven by your absolute decisiveness. Now, some people mistake that with thinking, well, no, that's who I am. I'm always available. But if the pressure to go and find a way to do everything, it's absolutely absurd. I mean, how many times have we heard, Cass, guys say, well, you know, I'm working all the time and I come home but are you home when you're home? Or are you still on the phone? Are you still working? Are you still doing? And you're like, well, everybody just does their own thing, but it still shows that your intention or your priority is not to even make the space available for other things and other people because you're so driven to the idea that you've got to be busy, you've got to do this and you've got to do the other. And then when you feel that draw, that trap, you go, man, I need to give some more time over here. So then we jump into all over here and then we forsake this. So
yeah, this is important to understand. If you think about last week when we were talking about all the things that you would call excuses, okay? Like, reasons. We call excuses, right? Reasons you justify not based off your core values. You start to think about, okay, well, that's why I need a break, right? So I'm going to sit down. The man you described, at least I'm thinking man, I mean, this could be a woman too, but the man you described comes home, sits down, he relaxes, he's not present, or he's got his phone when he is there. So he's not present and he's not involved. What are your core values? That goes back to what I talked about, where if I know hands down that I'm going to use one of mine, which is love like a wolf, serve and protect. Okay. Thinking of the wolf. Well, that means there's a number of things. I can't love my wife and my family and not be present when I'm with them. That means I have to go to the gym. There's so many things that wrap up into this because how am I supposed to love my wife, my kids, and fucking die young? Right? Like if you start to understand this, you make your decisions differently. We make those decisions. That has nothing to do with my wife.
That's right.
You see? And if you can do that, you can actually move forward. You can start to figure out how you're balancing. When do I go to the gym? What is the priority? Things like that. Right?
That's exactly right. And you find that you walk in a manner that's absolute control and absolute intention to the point where you're not ever second guessing where you are, even if somebody fusses and said, you weren't there for me, but you're there now and it doesn't matter. Because what you'll do, I mean, I used to think that equal, balance in my relationships meant equal time, as I've said, amongst everybody. But now I embody and I live out a few core values like stay present and always build genuine bonds. In other words, I don't want any superficial relationships. So I reframe my relationships, all of them, as opportunities for depth, not distribution.
That's right. That's right. You guys, the very first thing you need to understand about balance is if you're making decisions based off the core values, you won't be looking at, I'm going to use children as an example because Briar Vale and Riddick all completely need like absolutely different amounts of attention from me and different ways for attention, right? If I understand, okay, my core value, I don't need to think about the equal time for each of them. I need to think about how I'm reaching each of my children. If I can do that correctly, then I develop the bond with them in a way that we don't break. We're inseparable, right? And then there's other things you have to consider. Like if you think about the guys that we would help normally, right? Well, they're going to feel butthurt when their fucking kids love mom more, for example, right? So you have to know who you are. You can't balance anything in life and pick and choose how much time, because right now, if based on this example, you're making all your decisions on making sure they love you rather than making sure you love them.
Right.
That's
right. Give an example today. You know, I was walking through, I was going to go work out because I didn't work out this morning and I didn't work out yesterday. So today I'm going to work out. I had just enough time. Grandkids are here. My 11-year-old's sitting there and she'd drawn something on the computer and said, Dad, can you come look at this? I said, baby, I would love to. I have to go to the bathroom. Then I've got to go do something. And when I come back through, I'll look at it. And that kept me, because that's what I was doing. I didn't even feel like I needed to stop and go over there. And some of you were like, well, what was the big deal? Because what happens is you end up feeling like, oh, I'm really in a big hurry. And then you vomit and you trauma dump. You're like, Daddy's really busy and I don't have time for this and blah, 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 blah. And then nobody ever wants to engage with you anymore. So if we're not careful trying to find balance and actually doing it the wrong way, we'll create an imbalance where people won't even feel safe around intimate engagement at all. So when we are engaged, we've got to remove distractions. We need to listen deeply and respond authentically. So if you can't be around but for 3 minutes, which is what it was earlier, be there for that 3 minutes, deeply engaged, get curious.
That's amazing. And you know, what a great segue, because I'm seeing some comments coming in from Jody. I know who you are and I appreciate where you're coming from. Nobody gives a shit about the shit that you went through with your toxic mother, the future that you've never had because of your father growing up. Listen, we're talking about balance and growing, and you're talking about sitting in your pain. You will not grow. You can't balance shit at all if what we're talking about is not even a message for you. You want to vent. Okay, if you want to do that, there's plenty of places. It's called a therapist. I don't think that works, but fucking have fun. But if you want, learn from us, dude. Talk about what we're talking about, not what you're thinking about. Okay, James, continue, please. Next step.
Yeah, brother. Well, and the biggest thing now is like people do like to sit in their pain. And until you learn who you are, you're going to sit in your pain. So one of the things that I really always try to emphasize when I'm coaching men on how to have a balanced life is that part of that is to be flexible and know that growth is dynamic. I've learned that balance is not static, and it sure as heck ain't rigid. I mean, you see the acrobats. I mean, they're doing their hands out here. I mean, this is a balancing act, but we got to get out of our minds that, oh, I'm either balanced or I'm not. No, balance is often extremely dynamic in the sense that we don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow. So it's not like a to-do list and a calendar, although I believe morning routines, we'll talk about those in a minute. There's an interplay there, but it's about intentions and values and growth and practice and discipline and all these other things working together every step of the journey. So if we're not adapting, and flexibility isn't a strength that enables you to navigate the challenges, you won't have resilience. You'll have rigidity. And it was told to me a long time ago when I was a teenager, without flexibility, when you bend, you'll break.
You know, Catherine talks about that all the time in her program. She talks about my men when she coaches them, that you're not living life in a vacuum. And so you have to learn to be able to distinguish where your attention is spent. See, money is not your most valuable asset, and neither is time. It's what you do with your time.
That's right.
And the quality of what you're doing with that time. Otherwise, you will never get the marriage you want. You will never get the money you need. You will never get the health because you're literally always trying to rush in the rat race. You know, people talk about the rat race with business all the time, but it's the exact same fucking thing in marriage. If you can understand that you are driving the race in the wrong direction and spinning in a hamster wheel, like when you understand who you are, what you're doing and the direction you're going, and that you're not defined by your partner. You're defined by you. That's it. So no matter how shitty your life is right now, the thing that you hate the most or things you hate the most, you're the common denominator. If you can wrap your head around that, you can start to put time where you're needed in the order that it's needed.
Yep.
But see, most of you coming to us would be freaking out about what your partner says. Like the guys that tell us, well, she says, don't talk to me anymore. Says she wants space and I respect her boundaries. I'm just a guy on the phone before we got on this, talking about, how dare you clean the house? You're just doing that to control me. Trying to pretend like you love me. Man, we hear the same shit all the time, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And now what I'm getting at is like, if you're defined by your partner instead of who you are, you can't create discipline for what you need to do. Because now your discipline is like, oh shit, she said don't text me. Oh fuck. I'm not allowed to ask her for dates. I'm not allowed to say I love you anymore. What the fuck? How's that structured for marriage, man?
Yeah, it's not structure, it's fear. And that's where a lot of imbalance comes from. It's just a fear of not getting everything right. A fear, well, if I don't do this and somebody else is going to be mad. Well, hey, you know what? Everything's a trade-off. If you go out to eat versus go to the gym versus go on a vacation versus go to the bathroom versus go outside and get the mail, you can't do it all at one time. But you've got to be in a place where you understand that everything you're doing, it's okay to leave something undone and finish it tomorrow. It's okay to not be available for some. It's okay when somebody calls and said, I really need you. I'm having relationship problems, to go, hey, it's 11 o'clock at night. I got to go to bed. I'll call you this tomorrow afternoon or send a calendar link. And if you can't feel guilty about that, because you cannot do it all. And being accountable means living authentically and holding yourself to the values that you say who you are and live by them, even when it's uncomfortable and inconvenient. I'm sorry, I'm not available. And I don't ever say I'm sorry, but that's the sentiment. If people are really adamant, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be available for you. You can be that bold, but if you can't handle that, it's a bigger issue. And so there's some tools that we could talk about, if you wanted to. And one of those tools is just writing how we feel and journaling about these things. Am I being led and driven to be successful in a way that the world has told me to be, or these voices inside my head has told me to be, and I'm not successful? The reason that relationships are in bad shape is not because we fail at marriage. It's because we fail as a person. And all the relationship issues are the byproduct of that. Just like when we get ourselves in line, the relationship blessings are a byproduct of that.
That's amazing. Did you guys catch that? We fail. Our relationship isn't the problem. We fail. If you understand that, it's the premise of every message you see. When a video goes viral and hits 5 million views or 20 million views, when a post does that, it's because I'm holding men accountable. But the reality is men and women can hold themselves accountable. I just speak to men. My wife works with women. But if you understand this, like, the power is in who you are and understanding what could I do differently. That's it. Yeah. If you can't balance your life, it's a you fucking problem. It's a you problem. It's not your partner. It's not the way that they treat you. It's not the way that you were raised. You haven't learned. That's it. And then when you understand that, you said something, I don't want you to think that it's not that he doesn't apologize. What he's saying, he's not apologizing for that, right? For not being available when he is, because he understands his priorities already. He understands his core values already. I'm also not going to apologize for not being available, because I understand my priorities. I understand my values. Some of you don't even know, where you're really at. And what you'll do is you'll try to justify. Let's use the gym as an example. We hear this all the time. One of you, husband or wife, wants to go to work out in the morning. Oh, you don't even help with the kids, and you don't do this and that. Well, that is a you problem. Maybe that is not the best time. Maybe you do need to get up earlier. Right? You with me?
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, when we talk about success, a lot of people think having balance and perfect balance is really what success is. Everything's good. Everything's perfect. No, that's control freak. Living authentically in every moment, even in the parts that can't be balanced, is balance. That's the beautiful thing. And of course, there are things that are going to come up. Like, for example, if I look, and this has happened to me, I living in Oakland and Piedmont, right outside Lake Merritt. And we had twin century homes about 20 feet apart. And one night about 3 a.m, something's hitting my second story window. I open the window And my neighbor said, neighbor, help me. And his bottom first floor was on fire and he was stuck. He didn't have a telephone. So I call 911 and we go out there. We do what we got to do. So sometimes when somebody's on fire, you have to put everything. So sleep didn't matter. Getting dressed didn't matter. You walk out there, whatever you had on in the middle of the night, you just go and do it because that is an urgency. But everybody else's needs are not always a fire.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's right. But you see, you can't distinguish the difference if you can't distinguish who you are.
That's
because,
right.
I mean, almost everybody we deal with, men and women trying to save their marriage. Marriage is on fire, right? Yeah. And their spouse is the one on fire, right? Or they are, right? Yeah. So you think differently. You don't think in your authentic identity. You don't think about who you are. You think about what you want, and it's usually barely scratching the surface of what life could look like as in climbing out of a hole just to breathe. You're drowning, but you're trying to gasp for air instead of running on land.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the other ways of really a tool, this is going to sound funny, but another tool that really helps us to realize what balance is and to achieve it is to just have a heart of gratitude. Frame everything with a grateful mind. And this became a cornerstone for me. It's not that I have to, that it's I get to, or I have the opportunity to. And hey, you know what? I'm going to help that person in just a little while, but they're going to be upset with me for a while. That's not my problem. It's none of my business. I don't care what they think of me because I know who I am. So if they call me a great popsicle or if they call me a bastard, it doesn't matter. I'm neither. What I am is a man in control who's going to do what he knows to do, and he's going to do what's right that has an impact and helps other people. So I'm thankful for the fact I get this opportunity in two ways. One, I'll help that person when I can, or I'll meet that need when I can. That's awesome. I'm thankful that I can. And secondly, I'm so glad they remind me of the person that I'm no longer. I'm not going to run for forever. These are teeny tiny little wins that'll help you walk a little bit more steady on your feet.
Let me give you guys a super good example right now, because I'm going to bust this reel out on social. It's being edited right now, and it's going to piss people off. It's going to fucking piss people off, okay? But remember what we're talking about right now. We're talking about having gratitude, okay, and knowing where you're going based off who you are, okay? So the reel that I'm going to put out here is, and I believe this, and people are going to get mad, and it's going to say something along the lines of, when your partner tells you that they've had an affair, go in and say, thank you. That must have been incredibly hard to tell me that. Because what you do in that moment is you lose every bit of authenticity you have. You become a disgusting individual protecting yourself. Understandably why, I get it, okay? But then 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months, 2 years from now, you want your partner back as you ride this fucking roller coaster. Meanwhile, you puked out everything you could ever say about why you're so great, why they fucked up, and what the rules of marriage are, which are the exact reasons why they had the affair in the first place. But I know, and we know, that you're going to want your partner back, at least for a phase until you understand what's going on. And so if you go in with gratitude, knowing who you are, you won't lose yourself, because if somebody's making mistakes like that, which we all do, if we say things we shouldn't say, if we speak to people we shouldn't speak to, if we watch porn or drink or do whatever, abusing all these things that we talk about all the time, we all make mistakes. We all fucking do it when we're protecting ourselves, coping with whatever, keeping ourselves, protecting ourselves, keeping ourselves safe. So if that's the case, then try to remember who you are and who you want to be. You must not jump on the fucking crazy train.
There you go. That's right.
Yes,
how long are we going today?
Probably not too much longer.
All right. Let me poke this for a minute, because we talk about, I use some terms from my program, Momentum, the Path to Freedom, but alignment is one of those things. And there's something that I discovered over the years that I call identity anxiety. And I think we perpetuate it. And I think the idea of trying to find balance in life is just like trying to find ourselves. Because if we can get everything under control, have you ever had a big project due at the end of the week, or you had a big meeting or a dentist appointment, and you can't even hardly get anything else done because you've got that on your schedule? It's the same thing with balance in life. And until you decide to make a change and move forward into understanding your core values, I believe that living in alignment with your true identity and values eliminates 100% of identity anxiety. So then you can be intentional. Then you can make the right priorities because you don't second guess your schedule or your priorities or your to-do list. And you're not worried about for example, last week, my wife said, hey, can you run by the grocery store and pick some stuff up? I said, yes, I can do that. I didn't say when. That night at 9:00, did you go by the grocery store? No, I didn't have time. A few years ago, I'd have got dressed and gone and done it. I'm like, oh God, oh my Lord. I'm like, you know what? No, I didn't do it. Oh, I'll go and do it in the morning. That's okay. If you don't get to it, I'll manage it. The very next day, I go at like 10:30 at night because I was finished with what I was doing and I was already at the grocery store. It didn't matter. It should not wreck our lives. That's the flexibility thing I'm talking about. But the values remain non-negotiable. And I agree.
But I agree with that. The only thing is, as long as you're actually somebody who gets their shit done.
Gets it done.
You know your priorities.
Promise you can't keep, because then you're a liar.
That's right. That makes you full of shit. And then no wonder your partner doesn't trust you. So if we can understand that, like, the authenticity we're talking about is much more than your words. It's the actions.
Show, not tell.
Show, not do. Nobody gives a fuck about who you're going to be. They only care about who you are. That's defined by how you make them feel. Not your responsibility to make them feel a certain way. But if you can't be responsible for your values, for what you believe in, stop fucking throwing boundaries down because you all of a sudden know who you are and what you want. Like, it's already got to shit.
Right.
Just own it. Like I said, the affair thing. Thank you for telling me that you had an affair. That must have been fucking hard. Wow. Holy. Yeah, it's going to feel like shit to do that. But yeah, you want to know who you're going to be. At the end of the fire, who's standing there?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. Sometimes I think we run around so crazy, we actually set the fires because the friction's so hot.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Why is everything burning? Look behind you. You're dragging the fire around you. That's the point. So if we were to close this out, Cash, what are some thoughts we could ask some questions? I mean, what immediate changes could you make in your life right now to align with who you want to be? And what commitments, this is a big one for me, what commitments need to be reevaluated to see if they're actually something we should keep or realign? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say, like, the very first thing you have to decide is who I am beyond. We already know that you're struggling with marriage. That's why you're following us. Okay.
Right,
so
right.
If you know that, then you realize that if you only have your partner, we talked about this earlier on the call today. If your partner is your purpose, if your kids are your purpose, like kids is the easiest example. They fucking move out. Like, how the fuck can that be your purpose? You don't get to have purpose for a moment, for a season, right? You can be a great mom or a great dad. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that's not your purpose. That's just part of what you've got going on in life. So if you can first start identifying who you are with, you're not a job, you're not a mom or a dad, you're not a paycheck, you're not a fucking whatever your personal records were from when you were a kid, fucking bench press and dismount or whatever, how that on your call today, you're not defined by any of the shit you used to be and the shit that you have. You're defined by who you are, you know? So I would say that the very first thing you have to do is you start writing down beyond like what you have in your life right now and what you want as a goal. Right. Break down why you haven't reached your goals, because you don't know the person. I'll use this cheating example again. Thank you for telling me. That must have been hard for you to tell me you cheated. Man, the only reason I can say that is because if I heard that from my wife right now, I would know that I'm the kind of person that would want to know what happened, not say, fuck you, bitch. I want to know what I did wrong. I want to know where I fucked up. I want to know where the disconnect was, because I know authentically she doesn't define me. She's a part of my life. But the guy that's defined, he doesn't say fuck you, bitch to his wife anymore.
That's right. Yeah. And listening to the other people's opinions, even when they're wrong, can be a signal for us to pay attention to an area of our life that we have not noticed.
That's right.
It's always a learning opportunity. And how do you know if you're there? If you're triggered by the accusation, you're not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see that all the time. Like, if you have any form of contempt, bitterness, resentment about why you want to leave, if you want to quit because you're tired of feeling sad, lonely, isolated, and so you give up, you never figured your shit out in the first place because that person is emotional. That person can't possibly create success. So you fucked up right there. It's all on you right now. I make it your responsibility. Same reason people fucking go broke on the stock market, right?
Yeah.
Diving all in, fucking just fear of missing out. That's
Yeah.
what a love bomb is, folks.
That's
Fear
exactly.
of missing out. Here's my fucking love. Woo! Right? You're jumping on this fucking bandwagon instead of realizing you're causing your own failure.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. All righty. So what's next?
That's it. Now you go to go.moremarriage.com, join the free women's community if you're a woman, free men's community if you're a man, and you fucking get to work. There's so much shit there. Just get to work. Now, we'll tell you this. If you don't get to work, I'll just kick you off my app. I don't give a fuck. Lots of people want to work. Right? You with me?
With you. Let's do it. Let's go.
All right, guys. See you next time. Bye. This is that thing that takes forever to end now, so it's that awkward, like, see you guys.
See you guys. See you guys.
Oh, Shannon, don't fucking dip out on your marriage. Take responsibility for the life that you signed up for. Integrity, girl. All right, and stream.